I am your host, Mike Sjogren, here with my main man and brother from another mother, Mr. Emmanuel Pani. What's going on, E?
Mr. Sjogren, so good to see you, man. It's been, I don't know, we recorded last week. For some reason, it feels like the weeks are kind of flying by. We are, what is now, the end of the middle of February. So the year is running, but life is good, man. Just same thing. I actually had somebody approach me yesterday to join the brokerage, which is very interesting because I wasn't expecting somebody to come and ask. I was expecting that I would have to find people, but it's actually somebody that it's local and does vacation rentals. He has 4 or 5 of his own. So it's just like-minded. And what I was reminded of yesterday is how much when you're in alignment, things just kind of flow. And it's just like one of my friends in I was having a conversation. I was like, oh, this is difficult. This is difficult. It's like, what if life is easy? Like, what if it's instead of like thinking about the difficulties, you're like, how can this be easy? And I've been kind of thinking and sitting with that. And what I've realized is like the moment I get more focus and more in alignment, life is easy. Like life just kind of flows because how did this guy come through? You know, we've had conversations in the past, but what now? Why now? You know? So very interesting to just kind of like realize, you know, that less resistance you kind of put in place, life just kind of flows. But how's your week been?
It's good, man. I'll share a little something too. So I just got back from a trip yesterday. Some of the folks may have seen me taking some pictures with Bill Faith. Mm-hmm. And we've got some big stuff in the works, which I'm super excited. Can't announce it yet, but on the next episode, we'll definitely announce it. Really excited for that. But I used to have really bad anxiety when I flew, and that didn't really bother me the last couple of years, but I really haven't been on a plane much. And that anxiety came on strong on whatever it was a couple of days ago. Yeah. And I was sitting there and just trying to go back through all the personal development things. And all of a sudden this affirmation came to me, and it was just, I kept saying it to myself, my dreams are bigger than my fears. My dreams are bigger than my fears. And I just kept repeating it over and over again. And I actually just got goosebumps when I was saying it because I was in like full blown like terror panic attack mode getting on that plane. Yeah. And I just kept repeating it. And then I just felt this huge peace come over me. And I just kept seeing this thing that we're working on like come to fruition. I was like, this is absolutely worth it. Oh, that's awesome. And so if you're going through that right now, whether you're doing a short-term rental deal or an investment or whatever it is, and you're freaking out, try that affirmation out. My dreams are bigger than my fears. But I'm excited for today's episode, man. I don't even know if he remembers this, but he spoke at an M1 thing, God, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I remember listening to his story and I was like, man, this is an inspiring dude. Like just a super awesome, inspiring guy. And
I've always thought about Sam, and it's good for us to talk about it now because he's not on yet. So he's in the waiting room. We changed our software, so now we're trying something else. And Sam in his waiting room, so we can give him all the compliments we want, and then he can come on afterwards. But he can interrupt us. But I always saw him as like, you know, he's our age, but just like a clear leader, right? Like you can tell that he spent a lot of time crafting his leadership abilities, and he's a great husband and a good friend, and so really excited to have him on. We've been chasing him for a little while, but I've come to learn after all this time doing the podcast that usually the more we chase somebody, the better the show is going to be. So I am super excited to have Sam on, but I'll let you finish the intro, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah. So without further ado, today we have Sam Wegert on the show, and most of you probably, if you're familiar with like martial arts, like he's killing it in the martial arts game, and that's what he's passionate about. But he also owns 11 short-term rentals, and he's got a very cool strategy that he's using with short-term rentals that we're going to get into today. So Sam, without further ado, man, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
What's up, guys? Thanks for the intro. I was able to hear those compliments. I was in the waiting room, but I was able to hear them. I want you guys to know that. And I've never actually been on a podcast where before I've even spoken, I have like half a page of notes. That was good shit, guys. I'm like, how can this be easy? Dreams are bigger than my fears. I love this. This is the best podcast already. I feel like I'm listening to it, you know?
I love it. I love it, awesome, man. So tell us a little bit about like up level first about like what you're passionate about, and then let's transition into how you got into the whole short-term rental space.
Yeah, 100%. So up level is my first foray into entrepreneurship that I ever had. It started, and I could talk about it for an hour. So I'm going to keep a real high level story. I was one of 8 siblings, so big family. We all were allowed to pick one activity in our life. And so I picked soccer for a little bit, and then I transitioned to martial arts. And it just helped me build a lot of confidence. It gave me the discipline that I think a lot of that has translated to short-term rentals. A lot of that has translated to real estate investing in general. And I was in this place, and my instructor was burnt out from teaching. He said, Sam, I want to sell you the school. I was 15 years old at the time. I was homeschooled. So I kind of was in this, like, I could do school. I didn't have to go to school. And my parents just had tremendous belief in me, and they loaned me $15,000 to buy a little martial arts school in a little town called Amherst, Virginia, right outside of Lynchburg, Central Virginia. And from there, I just wanted to be somebody and prove to the world that I could, that I was enough, ultimately, if I'm being really real about it. So I just, I built a martial arts company. We now have 7 brick and mortar locations. I opened up one in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is where University of Virginia is. I then moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and opened up 6 additional brick and mortar locations. And we now have an online program, thanks to COVID, with students in 25 states. I'm removed a decent amount from my business. My brother is the CEO. He runs it. He's amazing. My younger brother. But it is a business that has dramatically impacted my lives. And every single day I get to hear stories about how it has helped people with more of their discipline and confidence and building physical fitness and self-defense. So something I'm very passionate about. Thanks for letting me speak about it for a moment, because it's got a big place in my heart for sure.
100%, man. 100%. So
every time I hear it, I can't believe your parents used to homeschool 8 kids. Like,
I know, right?
Absolutely.
I've got one, man. I couldn't fathom it. We did it for a while with COVID, and I was like,
I have friends that have kids, and like I experience them the way I'm like 8 homeschool. Like, that's why you had to be into martial arts, though, because with 8 siblings, you need to kind of know how to protect yourself.
You know how to protect yourself.
Yeah.
The thing that honestly surprises me most about my upbringing is when my parents loaned me. Like, I guess I was just raised in the homeschooling environment. We had a bunch of homeschooling friends. So that part was just kind of normal, at least for me. Looking back at it now, I am like, oh my gosh, Mom, that's crazy what you did. But the fact that my parents weren't rich, but the fact that they loaned me 15 grand as a 15-year-old, that part, I could get tears about that part, because I'm like, Mom, like, where did you even get the 15 grand from? Like, how did you even have 15 grand to loan me to buy this martial arts? Like, it wasn't a lot of money. It's not like it's a tremendous amount of money, but for your 15-year-old to go start a business, like, that part just shows how much belief my instructor had in me. And I just believe that anything we accomplish in life ultimately is at some levels because someone believed in us. And, sometimes we're borrowing the belief of the people around us. But for me, it really was my parents, my teachers, my coaches.
Yeah.
So good.
Friends
so
like
good.
You guys.
Yeah. Another nugget. Sometimes you just got to borrow the belief for a little while, but that's amazing, man.
And I'm borrowing that statement from Hal Elrod. He's big on borrowing the belief, but yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. Sharing it with the world. So how did all this transition into short-term rentals, right? Like, how did you even think about like getting in the game for that? Like, what was that conversation like with yourself and your lady there? Yeah.
I fell into short-term rentals for sure. It was not something I was even doing for a business. It was not something I even wanted to. I just literally, like, rich people have second homes, right? Like, that's what I thought. And then when they don't stay in them, they rent them out, right? Like, that's like, I just thought, you know what? I can get a good loan. And I love this little cabin I found in a town called Black Mountain. It's right outside of Asheville, North Carolina, which my wife Rachel has lived there for 8 years. And we met in that town. We have so many like fond memories. So to me, it just seemed like the right thing to do to have a place to go to vacation. And it was turnkey. And what's funny is, like, I didn't realize up until this point, I'd never fully furnished a house. And even up until like a year ago, I had never fully furnished a house, because even with our long-term rentals, we just furnished the common spaces. So we've just recently done a full furnishing of a house. And I was like, wow, I guess I have bought a lot of turnkey short-term rentals, because this is a pain in the butt. Like, to fully long story short, Michael, I wanted to live in a place. I wanted to go visit a place. I wanted to have a place to vacation and hang out with friends. And so that was how we bought the first place. And then from there, the cash flow was really good. That was probably back in 2016. Don't quote me on that year, but I want to say 2015, 2016. And I just had so much fun, and the income started to be really good for it. And I thought, you know what, I'll just get another one. But it wasn't really a focus, I would say, until maybe a year ago. And then I started thinking like, okay, I'd like to buy some more of these.
So what does your system look like? So it's you and Rachel, right?
Yeah.
And so like, what do you guys do? Like, do you spend time actively on it, or one of you spends more time on it? Like, what does that look like? Because I mean, 11 short-term rentals is not a small undertaking, you know?
Yeah. And they're all several hours. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and most of them, with the exception of 2, are in Asheville. So they're 2 hours away from where we live. So it's even more difficult for that reason. Yeah, so it's really evolved for us. So my focus has been on the long-term rentals. And so I built out a property management team to handle those. And it just kind of naturally flowed for us to start giving them different responsibilities over the short-term rentals as well. So, hey, my property manager, he's the one who responds to all the messages. We've got a badass handyman guy in Asheville that is able to take like the emergency after hours calls if there is something like that. Rachel is for sure like head designer, worked a lot on putting together the automated messages. She writes the listings for these things. She's just got a real aesthetics is her number one like value driver in life. So things looking beautiful, furnished, correct, like that is her. And so she handles like basically everything from, hey baby, I bought a house. Here's a house. It has some furniture. It has all the furniture. It has no furniture. And she'll go in, she'll put her beautiful stamp on everything. And then she's got her little handyman contact that will, you know, change the locks and do all of that. And then at that point, she'll write the listing. And then she works with the property manager to schedule photos and to get this thing, to get it live. I'm not sure if that 100% answered your question, but that's kind of the breakdown of responsibilities. I'm looking for properties. I'm negotiating for them. I'm buying them. Rachel, my wife, is like putting her stamp of approval on it, furnishing them. And then the property management team that we already have in place is responding to messages, inquiries, handling bookings once they're there. And then our maintenance guy is like the after hours contact.
And so how do
you guys have like a third party cleaning company as well that does all the turnovers?
It's not, yes. It's just honestly the cleaning lady in Asheville that we found on Facebook. Like I put a Facebook, I remember, okay, so we had a cleaner. She was good, but not great. And everybody kept telling me like, hey, the best thing you could do for short-term rentals is literally hire the best cleaner. And I was like, yeah. But then like I didn't believe them until little things started to happen. It was just like, and I wasn't managing the cleaner, but I still like, it would seep to me. And I'd be like, why is this coming to me? Like the cleaner is pissed off at this. And you know, it's like, there's dog hair at the place. Like, yes, we pay you to clean the place. Like, don't tell us that you're mad that there's dog hair. Like, that's what we pay. Like, it was just like things like that just started to get annoying. And so I was like, I'm putting an ad out. So I put an ad out on like some local Facebook, like Asheville jobs, like a Facebook group. But then I just put a normal ad out on like a Facebook, I think it's Facebook Marketplace. You can post jobs to Facebook Marketplace. Mm-hmm. And this lady from Mexico was like, I was a lawyer in Mexico. I'm trying to restart my life. And she's like, her and her mom and her husband are like the best team we've ever had. You never hear anything, and it's all 5-star reviews about cleaning. So hopefully that little story was helpful. But yeah, she was great to find, and she's the one that handles all of that.
Yeah. I wanted to highlight that it wasn't like Rachel or you or anybody else that was like doing the cleanings. It was like, no, we went out and found good people that could clean the properties for us. Basically.
No. And the other thing that it's funny to like realize what Sam said, it somehow got to me.
Yeah.
Right. So what that means though is just like as a business owner, right? And like from like having all that like karate studios and stuff, you know, you create a system and you know that there is supposed to be some people in the way to something getting to you. And things get to you, they're just of utmost importance.
Right.
And so things are getting to you that are not of the utmost importance. So Sam is like, something is wrong. I don't know what's wrong, but something is wrong, right? But again, that goes to understanding like, what is your role in your business? If you're the architect of the business, which is what Sam is, right? I just architect this and create the systems underneath me.
Yes.
That's when you realize you're like, why am I dealing with this?
Yeah.
There is a breakdown somewhere. But that again goes to understanding like how to leverage yourself. Because again, like Mike said, Sam or Rachel having no point being like, we're going to go clean because we can do it better than this lady. Because that's just a waste of time, right? Like there's no value. You know?
Being 2 hours away, Emmanuel, helps with that. Because it's like, you know, something would happen with the cleaning. It's like, we would tell our property manager, like, you need to have a backup. Like that's your responsibility. We can't drive to go clean.
Good luck.
And that's just one other quick thing that I wanted to highlight too, because a lot of people, they'll reach out to me or E and they'll be like, you know, I found this great place, but it's like 3 hours away from where I lived. Like, shouldn't I do my first one in my backyard? First one I did was 3.5 hours away. If anything, it feels scarier, but it forces you to create that infrastructure like we were just talking about. So like, it's too easy when it's close to go, you know, change the batteries or fix this or fix that or clean it if something happens. If it's further away, it forces you to have, like you said, the cleaner and then a backup. Like what happens what if they get sick? What if they get COVID? Like whatever, like what is your plan B? And think all that stuff through as a business owner out the gate.
Totally. And I think,
so,
go ahead.
I was going to say, so now, I mean, you went from 1 to 2. Now I think you said you're up to 11 properties. Has that evolved over time? And what does that look like for you now, I guess, compared to at the beginning when you just had the first couple?
That's exactly where my brain went. As you were saying all that, my brain kind of went off on this little tangent. I'll see if I can track it and explain it. So I was thinking back to when I only had 2 or 3 properties total, maybe 1 short-term rental and 1 or 2 long-term rentals. Like cash flow in that business was tight. And I remember having to replace an HVAC at one of my long-term rentals. It wasn't even a short-term rental, but I was like, shit, like this thing's
no
like $5
money.
grand.
Yeah, no money for the next 8 months.
And I had, so I remember taking money from my martial arts business and like loaning it to the real estate company to pay for and I remember being like, man, this isn't cool. And so we definitely did a lot more. I would say, I did a lot more personally at 1, 2, 3, I would say up to 8 or 9 homes. It was not uncommon for me to go to a home, handle something, Rachel to handle something, Rachel maybe to do even a cleaning at that point. But I was trying to think of the number as you were talking, Michael. I think it was close to like 9 to 10 homes where I remember, and I distinctly remember this, like I distinctly remember having like an exhale because I would look at the account. I'd be like, okay, there's like 45,000 in that account. I've been okay. Like I could have 4 HVACs go out and I wouldn't have to like borrow money from this. But it did take a little feeding for a little bit as I kind of, and here's the other thing too. In long-term and short-term rentals, I got better at evaluating deals. So my margins started to grow. Like I remember the first deal I evaluated, I didn't even put like an ongoing maintenance charge in it. I didn't put any property management charge. I was just like, okay, this is what I'm getting in rent. And well, that's what my mortgage is. I should make money. Right. And so I think that's another key point. And I've been doing a real estate training this whole week and something I've been trying to hammer home. Like, guys, this is not an emotional decision. You need to have a great process for underwriting deals and you need to cushion it enough for life to happen. So I think between those 2 factors, so between like just kind of some volume and then me evaluating deals better, I do specifically remember like that. There was a point in this real estate journey for me where I was just like, okay, let's hire that person. No, Rachel, don't clean. No, not anymore. You know, and that whole process kind of started to move in that direction. And yeah, I mean, maybe that should happen. Maybe that should have happened earlier. Like maybe that should have happened on house 1 or 2, but there wasn't a ton of cash there, right, to handle that unless I kept kind of feeding it somehow.
No, and I think you brought up a great point, Sam, because I think a lot of people, I mean, I used to do like maintenance and everything as well, right? And it's understanding of like, one is the natural evolution of your brain. Also, because I think we've been taught that for you to do something, you gotta be actually doing it for a certain amount of time, right? So it's very difficult for you to just go into something and not have that like, I need to be like in the business to work on it instead of just working from the top. But then again, like real estate, especially long-term real estate, that's a big reality that people don't understand. It's like, it's a couple $100 a month and it's the slow game. And when you buy cheap houses, the biggest problem with buying cheap houses is you get cheap rent. And the point of cheap houses is that the fixing of things is not in relation to how cheap the rent is. And what I mean by that is that if you go to Lowe's and you're buying, your rent is $450 and a dishwasher goes out, Lowe's doesn't look at your rent as like, oh, you only make $450 a month. Oh, we're so sorry. We'll reduce the price to $100 to be in comparison to is the same.
Right.
So now that great rent doesn't cover it. And that's why at that small rent, you want to go for a larger number of units so you have economy of scale.
Yeah.
And then something happens, but you have enough units. But again, the real estate is slow, and that's why short-term rentals, it's a hack in a sense, because the cash flow allows for issues a little bit more.
Yeah, dude, that's a beautiful, beautiful point. And I love the analogy of like, hey, your washer's still going to cost $450. It's still going to cost. It's a month of rent.
Yeah,
but 100%. It might be like we have a home right down the street from where I'm sitting right now. We rent for $52.50 a month. Like, great, washer goes out. That's literally less than 10% of what we rent the home for. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful point.
I want to pivot to what we were talking about off air of this co-living, right? This niche that you've kind of carved out. Can you explain to the listeners, like, what is this co-living niche and how does it intertwine with short-term rentals?
Yeah. To quote David Green from Bigger Pockets, when I was doing the episode with him, he says, Sam, co-living sounds like long-term rentals and short-term rentals got together, had a baby, and co-living was born. Which is just, we laughed and it was a funny comment, but I'm not sure that's exactly how I would describe it. But that it's a little bit of a mix of a lot of these different things. Co-living, in essence, is simply taking a single family home, furnishing common areas. So maybe that's the little piece that like feels like a short-term rental because you're furnishing a piece of the home, and renting out the bedrooms, and then also converting maybe a dining room or a living room into an additional bedroom. There are lots of people in the co-living niche that are furnishing everything, like even the bedrooms. My team doesn't do that because I want them to feel like this bedroom is their apartment. It's their new apartment, you know, and I'm not going to furnish, like, you make it your own. And they're going to sign a 12-month lease on it. So we just let go of all month-by-month leases because it was creating too much turnover. So we do 6-month and 12-month leases. So technically in that sense, it's a long-term play. Now, because you could have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, my biggest homes have 9 tenants in one house, you're going to, shoot, I forgot where I was going with that. Anyway, you could have that many.
You make vacation rental money almost. If you make almost short-term money because you have 9 people renting, so you probably charge them how, like, let's say a long-term rental there will be how much? Versus
so a 12-month lease for a master bedroom would be $850, and a shared bath is going to be $750. To use round numbers, it could vary if the room is really small or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're taking a home on that particular home. You know, you're taking a home that maybe would rent for $2,300, maybe, you know, and you're getting $6,300 a month for it. It's longer term. There are lots of nuances to it, which is what people are interested in finding out. What are all the nuances?
Yeah, because my mind is spinning right now because I'm like, okay, one is like, how do you mix and match kind of personalities?
Yeah.
Right? Because that would be one of my fears. I'm like, I don't want to like have to become a therapist about like.
Can I pause for a second there though?
Yeah.
Ironically, that is probably the biggest thing that people initially say. They're like, there's no way I could have that many people find on. Also, ironically, in me doing co-living spaces for 13 plus years, I have only ever had to like kick out a tenant for that type of disagreements 3 times.
Yeah.
Maybe 4. Like, it's just so weird to me that it doesn't, like, I get that would be a concern. You're like, how does this work? And I think the reason we've been able to do a good job with it, Emmanuel, is because we do a pretty dang good job with the vetting process. And like just how we share them, how we share our house rules and how we introduce them to the community, all the other people that are in the community. I mean, it's really, the whole goal is like, it's community living. But anyway, I didn't mean to take that off on a tangent.
No, and it's funny because again, like one of the things that happens with vacation rentals, I feel like that is the same questions that people ask Mike and I would like, well, what about parties? Right. And it's like the idea, the first thing that you think for your own kind of like personality and fears, because that would be my thing, right? Like I would hate to have a shitty roommate, like excuse my French, but like, you know what I mean? Like that would be my concern. And that's the main concern. And again, the same thing that we tell people about parties, like in 12 years of doing this,
right,
how many parties did I have?
Couple.
Very few. You know what I mean? And like, how many people did actually wreck the property? Very few. But again, like, in looking at opportunities, unfortunately, your subconscious mind is the first thing that speaks, and the subconscious mind only knows that's different.
Wow.
Fear. I'm going to protect myself and like my stuff. And then, but a lot of the times, right, again, right, if you don't ask the questions or if you don't have that awareness of it, your subconscious is going to be like, different, danger, wrong, problem, not doing this. Thank you. Next thing. And you go back to the same stuff that you always do. And you're like, why? Because you have no awareness about why you're not wanting to do what you want to do. So very
well said. I just wrote that down. It's so true. Like, new idea, you know, immediately guard goes up. How could this hurt me? How could this kill me? How could this take me down? Right? Like, just a protection mechanism. It's so true. That analogy fits. I'm so glad you mentioned the parties, because that's literally what I feel when people say, well, roommates don't get along. And you're saying about the parties. Very great analogy. And I wanted to say something else about that, but I forgot what it was. But yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So have you switched over like the whole portfolio to the co-living, or do you still do some like traditional STR stuff? Like, how does that look like now in your portfolio?
Okay, I'll just explain how my mind thinks about this. When I'm going to look for a co-living space, I'm looking for 2,500 plus square feet. I'm looking for a lot of great parking, no HOA, lots of rooms that could be split up into bedrooms. I'm looking for kind of a weird, funky layout is perfect. You know, I'm looking for finished basements. I'm looking for a nice little common area. I'm looking for like a home that has at least 3 full baths, because that means sometimes I'll add baths based on the ratio that I want to have of baths to bedrooms. So, you know, I'm looking for all of those things. That does not fit my short-term rental criteria at all. So I've never converted. Let me make sure I'm not lying. Have I converted? I've never converted a co-living to a short-term rental, and I've never converted a short-term rental to a co-living. I've always just looked for completely different things. So when I go look for a short-term rental, I'm looking for, at least in the Asheville area, great view, some sort of X factor. The first house I bought, a great example of this, was this guy built this cabin. I say cabin, it's a nice home, like it pops. But he built it around this 150-year-old fireplace that had just been sitting there. And he built it right next to this stream. So we have a little plaque that tells the story of this 150. It's just like a little, like something like that. And there's this tile work that's really unique. And it's just, it's in this little unique area. And it's got a little basketball court. There's like several little X factors that someone would look at and be like, wow, not every home has a basketball court. Like, that's badass. Let's do that. So those are the things I look for in short-term rentals, or a view, a long-range view. There's a lot of those in and around Asheville. Co-living is going to be more just this kind of big spread out house that you can chop up into bedrooms. Just being real. That's what you do with a co-living house.
Are you looking for, on the co-living side, I guess, like, you know, we talk a lot about like your guest avatar, like,
yeah.
Are there certain, like, are you looking for places near like hospitals for like traveling nurses, or like, are there certain demographics that you look to serve and then base like the market around that? Or have you found like a sweet spot yet, I guess, for what that looks like?
I want to answer that question, but I just thought of something that really is a beautiful marriage of this. I have a friend, he just bought a home in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He's been watching me do co-living and short-term rentals. So he legitimately combined them. He took a 6-bedroom house, turned it into an 8-bedroom house, furnished it all, and is renting out each room on Airbnb at a nightly rate of like $30-40. But he did the math for me. And if he's even booked, like, the cash flow is still insane. It's just going to, obviously he's going to have that more turnover. So that is probably the best like marriage of these two concepts I've ever seen. I'll be curious to see how he does, but I know there are people out there that do that. I don't personally do that, but that's maybe even a more beautiful marriage. So I've been doing co-living specifically in Charlotte, North Carolina and Asheville, North Carolina. Asheville's a town of probably 50,000 people. It's really a tourist town is really what it is. It's a retirement and tourist town. And I did not think it would work there. It works beautifully. So and then I had a Bigger Pockets episode go live, literally thousands. And that's not an exaggeration. Thousands of people reached out to me and started telling me stories. I'm doing this in Denver. I'm doing this in my small town. Boom, 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 boom. So we created the Facebook page called the Co-Living Investors Community. All these people are telling me stories about where they're doing this. What's interesting is this: housing is an issue everywhere. Everywhere. Like it's an issue everywhere. And this is solving a big need. So I have any requirements that I would have given you, like this is for college students. No, 100% of our tenants. I don't even think we have one college student in 150 rooms that we rent. It's young working professionals. They've got jobs. They have to show income verification. We're renting it like an apartment. Yeah.
No, and it's the reality of living in America, right? And I think like that is the most beautiful thing about this country is all the opportunities, but also like this country is also very brutal when it comes to like you need to make a living, you need to make money to survive, and you have the highest quality of living if you make money, and things can get rough if you don't have money. And the reality is like, for example, Miami was just announced the most expensive city in America, right? The least affordable city in America. What's going to happen to these people, right? Like what's going to happen to all the labor force, all like, especially down here, right? You have a lot of like hospitality, like workers, restaurant workers. Where are these people going to live? And the reality is that unfortunately, this is the reality of the country we live in. And this is a way that you can kind of provide a service in a sense, because you provide clean, safe places that are well furnished and well run.
Yep.
And people, because people like $850 for a master bedroom,
including utilities.
It's great because like a one bedroom for me now down here, which I used to rent for like $1,450 2 or 3 years ago, I can rent that for like $2,100 now, and that's a one bedroom. Right? So if you're anybody, even if you're like making money, but you have maybe school loans or some type of other loans or medical or anything like that, you're getting a divorce. Like, where are you going to go live?
That's right.
If you're a single person who's getting a divorce, where are you going to pay $2,100 plus first lesson security?
Plus utilities.
That's rough.
You're $2,500 a month.
You're providing a service. And if you do it well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And you make money, which is great.
Yeah, so the cash flow is, which is why it's gaining a lot of popularity now. A, there's a ton of demand. B, the cash flow is really good. If you can handle some of the nuances of it, you can do a really great job with it. Yeah, so what I've been saying to people, Michael, to go back to your original question, is like wherever there's an issue of housing, then I believe, and obviously I haven't tested it in every market, but I'm hearing stories from all over. This is an amazing solution to that. If you vet correctly, if you provide the right service, as you were saying, Emmanuel, like absolutely. And we've just found, at least in Charlotte and in Asheville, the demand has been off the charts. As housing prices have increased, as apartment rent has gone up, it's become more and more and more in demand. And people are staying for years.
I honestly don't see a place where it wouldn't work. And the other thing that I'm thinking, which is very interesting, and I don't know how much of your upbringing plays into this, but it's just like the community feeling. Right. And even how you refer to them, you're like, we show them, like, we would welcome them into the community. So in a sense, it could become a lot of fun. Like it could be like a living, kind of almost like going back to college, right? Like you have a bunch of roommates, but it's different. And you're like in a place that people do feel lonely at time, you know what I mean? And the reality of, again, just the metaverse reality that we're going towards, people are going to feel lonely. And like, dude, if you can get out of your metaverse thing and you go into your living room and there's like 8 other roommates, you'll be like, oh shit, like life is real. Like there's real people I can hang out with, and it's not just my Oculus like reality, right?
Right.
So it's super interesting.
Yeah, Emmanuel, so I lived in these properties for 12 right after I bought my martial arts school. This was how I lived until I got married. I would buy a house, rent out rooms, and then I would like fill it all up and have fun with it was an amazing time. I officiated my first wedding I ever officiated was my roommate coming to me and be like, and he met his wife at a little community party that we threw together. Oh, that's awesome. Like literally, if it wasn't for us, like, cause we would throw community events. So and then he just thought it was so appropriate that I would officiate. So that, I mean, people from Mexico, part of my passion is teaching people to reduce their expenses, because the truth is, you don't, even if you are successful, like, do you really need to like spend your money on rent? Like, is that really the best place for it? I like the FIRE movement, you know, financial independence and retire early. Like, a big piece of that movement is get your expenses down. So this whole like American dream of let's live in a big house, and yeah, I see it shifting for our generation a little bit, and I'm excited about it. It's cool. It's like, even the house I'm sitting in right now, I'm sitting in a big house. I'm overlooking the lake. It's 4,500 square feet. But my wife and I short-term rent it when we're not here. You know what I mean? Like, we house hack even our main house when we're like traveling or whatever. And it pays for itself, you know, and that's really cool. So just that whole idea of living in community, sharing what you have, the shared economy, I feel like is becoming more prevalent. It's a beautiful thing in a lot of ways. And co-living is just a big like movement, I think, in that direction.
Yeah.
I see. This will be my prediction, just throwing it out there, that the co-living will have niches within the niche. So like, there will be, my prediction, some higher end co-living places as well, like super hip, trendy places that rents seem ridiculous to a lot of people, but the vibe at those places is off the charts. So like the 20-something-year-old salesperson that's making decent money that just wants to live in a sick place with cool people, like I could totally see that working as well in some like urban and suburban markets where it's just like, this house is sick, or like an entrepreneurial type of like combinator house, right? Like I could absolutely see that working.
And you have those a lot, like those that just been happening like low key. Like, I mean, that like, you know, you have the artist community, those people have been living in communal environment for always, you know, and again, like, is the reality of human. So, and again, I feel like the show is getting a little bit more like philosophical, but like, is the reality of like the East and the West, right? And like the West, there is a guy called Philip Shepard, and he wrote a beautiful book called Radical Wholeness. And there's this whole idea of like, the West has this need to isolate the ego, and the ego needs to live in the big castle on the hill with the white fence.
Right.
And the West is completely different. But at the same time, the ego, you need people, and there's no way to live life. So again, if you can do it, and the beauty with the co-living thing and the Airbnb thing is you can be the guy that wants it for the freedom. So you're like, I don't want bills. I don't want a fixed place. I just want to be free.
Right.
Or you can do the entrepreneur that's kind of like in the mix, like Sam, right? Like, you love the money, but you also love the community and taking care of people. And so there's not right or wrong, but there's just so many different ways to do it. And again, people need people at the end of the day, you know?
Yes. I have two thoughts that came up for me. Two quick stories. So when people started reaching out to me to tell me that they were doing this, Michael, I had someone reach out to me from Hawaii, and he leased, I think he put like 100-year lease on an entire floor of a skyscraper. He rehabbed the whole thing into 24 bedrooms with a beautiful common space overlooking the ocean. It's in like whatever the main island there is in Hawaii, in one of the big cities. And he rents it for $2,000 a month. And he has a massive waiting list. And he said, his goal, the reason he reached out was he was like, look, I want to start doing this in all the major markets where people can float. And it's exactly what you just said. It's people who are just, I can work from home. Wow, let me go meet people. And he tells me all these stories about how people are getting together. They're going on trips together after they meet in this co-living space. So it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, kind of what you were saying, Emmanuel, I had a guy from Germany, which is not exactly the East, but I think that Europe has adopted maybe a little bit, starting to mix. And he said he's building co-living, like ground up developments, 150 doors at a time, but built for co-living. So it's basically, imagine like a 4-bedroom apartment with a small community space. And he built it really smart. He showed me the renderings. He said, if I just take out these 2 walls, it becomes a 3-bedroom apartment with a living room and then the kitchen. And I was like, dude, this is crazy. He's like, yes, I'm looking to do this. I want to do this more in Australia. I want to do this more in the United States. And it just, I don't know, kind of really just got me thinking and gave me faith that, like, as a species, we're moving together. We're okay with some of these things that maybe we weren't okay with before.
Yeah. 100%.
One of the coolest things about college, honestly, is living with people and like meeting friends, right? Like, honestly, like,
oh, dude,
this is just like the next evolution of that. And I would absolutely, I mean, if I look at a lot of my friends, like after school, like I moved home and just tried to save as much cash as I could for a property. But a lot of my friends just moved into these apartments and just got roommates. You're just fostering that for somebody like myself, who's more of an introvert, of like, hey man, come live in this cool space. There's going to be other people there, but like, here you go. Here's awesome, affordable housing and you'll meet some cool people here. So I love it.
Yeah. I'll have to report back to you on how my friend does short-term renting their rooms. I'm sure you
I have some students that do it well. I've personally never done it. I've always done the whole house or like two, you know, if it's a fourplex, you know, 2 units at a time or whatever, but I've never done it by the bedroom. I think that is a different guest avatar than somebody else, right? It's definitely different, but I'm curious for you, Sam. So like you've got a taste of a bunch of these different niches now. Where do you see your portfolio going in the future, I guess, for the next 12 to 24 months? Like, what are you looking for now?
I got it. I can answer that so succinctly and with a ton of clarity, because I have spent a lot of time in 2022 kind of after my martial arts schools took an enormous hit through COVID. We were shut down completely for 6 months. And it just really gave me, and then there was like kind of like nothing to do, because even though like we skirted some of the rules, like people don't want to come in. It's close contact, touching someone. Like, no, I'm not going to do martial arts. So it gave me the time to really pause and think about basically the answer to your question is what I'm saying. And so now my brother has been building the martial arts back up, and I like where I'm at with that. I'm going to dedicate more of my time to real estate, 2022 and beyond. I see the niche, at least in my area, being luxury, and when I say luxury, I mean $1 million plus homes that are large, that sleep a lot, and just have a lot of those little X factors that I talk about. And part of this is maybe somewhat personal, because my wife loves the luxury five-star experience. Like, that's just her thing. She geeks out about it. Everything she does is like, so I'm just like, cool. I'm kind of playing to her strengths. I'm playing to some of these bigger houses. The last one we bought in Asheville was like 4,041 square feet. It's 7 bedrooms. It's 12 minutes from the Biltmore, right outside of city limits. So it evades the short-term restriction rules. You know, it's like, I think it's just, it's going live this week, but like, I think it's going to absolutely crush it. And then I actually placed an offer on one today, big view, 3,800 square feet, $1.1 million. Like, I just see a lot of benefit being in that. I see it less competitive. And when you start looking into like the luxury homes, a lot of them are in HOAs. A lot of them have more restrictions. So it's already a little, like, it's actually harder to find like a non-HOA, big home, super nice. Like that's a very tight niche, at least outside of city limits, you know, at least in Nashville. So that's where I see the short-term rental going. And then I will continue to buy CoLiving. I love what it does. And I would like to even build some from the ground up. That is a bigger project that I'm learning, that it's not just like, hey, you tell a contractor to go build you a thing. Like, it's a big thing. And I'm learning that. So that could take a few years to really get underway. And then I'm coaching. I'm training a lot of people. I've been training. We have 200 people registered for our training this week. And it's just been I've loved it. I've had so much fun just like sharing everything I know about CoLiving, and people are really excited about taking it to their markets and doing it. So that was a little bigger answer than maybe you were looking for. That's kind of more my life plan for the next 5 years, but hopefully that also answers your question.
No, and great, because I just want to show people too that I look at short-term rentals from the beginning. It was a vehicle to get more control over my time. I was stuck in a job making good money, but I was trading time for dollars, and I couldn't be there when my family needed me, like when my son was sick and everything else, because I ran out of vacation time, right? And I vowed I wouldn't put my family in that situation. It is a vehicle that can get you that freedom to then pursue. You can keep growing it, or you can pursue other things that you're passionate about. And like for you, you've always been passionate about teaching. Now you have another vehicle that you can teach.
Yes.
And then you reinvest that back into more properties, and they just coexist. They co-live together, right? Ironically, right? But it's just, if you can help, like you said, take that fire approach of take the money piece off the table, get yourself stable. It just gives you more breathing room to think about what you actually want to do.
Yeah.
And for me, short-term rentals was one of the vehicles that could get me to that point faster than any that I had come across before. So we just went all in and just focused on it.
Yeah. I asked a question, Michael. I think this would be good for your listeners too. I asked a question at the beginning of my co-living training. I said, what is holding you guys back from buying more real estate? And I was so surprised at the vulnerable answers of people just being like scared, fearful. What if it doesn't work out? And so just this idea of like having this group, what you guys are doing is so amazing. Just giving people what I find people need a lot of. And frankly, if I'm totally honest, sometimes I need a lot of it. It's just reassurance. Like just reassurance, like you're on the right track. You can place that offer on that home. You can do that. And I just feel like that's what you guys are doing, is telling, look, this works. It was just amazing. I don't know. Somehow my brain connected what you said with all of that. And just like, that's so appreciative for what you guys are doing here. And I've realized that people need that in the co-living space. And I'm sure it's the same in the short-term rental space of like, hey, this works. You can do it. You'll make some mistakes on the way, but take that action, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Well,
And I love Sam. I think it also like you're a living example of like kind of like what Eddie was talking about. Just like, what if it's easy, right? And you just kind of take that approach to it. That you're like, it'll take me a little while to learn it. And that's good, right? Like there's just this like kind of like, it's very chill energy that you have, but I also know you're very purposeful with what you do. And it's not a if, it's a when, and you just have to have that kind of confidence. And again, like you said, as long as you keep putting the reps in, sooner or later you'll get there, right? And it's just a matter of like surrounding yourself with the right people, surrounding yourself with a lot of proof of concept, because obviously that makes a big difference, right? And that I think that's what's so great about the community that we have. I met somebody this week and I was like, yo, we have a whole community. And like as soon as he found it, he joined and he's like, I've been looking for this. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's why we started it, right? Like it's just like it makes sense. It makes a difference, you know? But again, like, don't sweat it. It's just going to the gym and like just do the right things day in and day out. Pull out white pebbles instead of black pebbles, and eventually, if your pocket is full of white pebbles, you're going somewhere, right? So I really appreciated that. Like I really appreciated the whole podcast. It's just been like this overall energy that you have, and it just you keep doing things, and you just kind of like very kind of flow with water, right? What's trying to find a martial arts kind of saying that goes well with
martial arts in a man,
right? I'm like, I don't know, like flow with water. I'm thinking about like Kung Fu Panda. I'm like, I don't know any like any philosophical quotes from that movie. So I'm like, I don't know.
Emmanuel, I appreciate that. I know you mentioned earlier on in this podcast, like, hey, this is kind of going in a philosophical direction, but I actually really appreciate, I appreciate everything you've shared. Even today, I've taken a few notes myself on just some of the philosophical stuff, because so much of it is the 80-20 rule of like, it's 80% mindset and psychology, and 20% of it is the how, 20% of it is that, but the rest is getting from here up, from the neck up, correct and right and screwed on right. So I think there's so much value in that when it comes to real estate investing, because some of your, even like bringing full circle. First thing you said, right? Co-living. Roommates won't get along. Fear. Short-term rentals. What about parties? Fear. Okay, let's lean into those and move on so we can take action and reach our goals. Because our dreams really are bigger than our fears.
Yeah. Look at that. Full circle.
100%. So I want to be respectful of your time. I just realized we've been on here for almost an hour. I could do another hour easily with you. So I appreciate you coming on. But I want to acknowledge you again and thank you for coming on here and just being so willing to share. And like he said, your energy is amazing. Like your energy, your leadership, and just your authenticity just comes through. Like it's just transparent, and we truly appreciate that. And I know the listeners are going to appreciate that. And so before we get into the last question, where can folks learn more about you, up-level, the co-living stuff that you're doing? Where can they get in touch with you on all that good stuff?
Yeah, Facebook is best. I still use Facebook. I'm a young guy, but I still use Facebook. Instagram too, at Sam Wegert, or Facebook, Sam Wegert. I'm like the only one on Facebook that's named Sam Wegert. So that is a cool little hack. We created a Facebook group called the CoLiving Investor Community. I think it's, CoLiving Investor Community. So people can find us there, and I'm answering questions and interacting there. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. And so the last question that we ask all of our guests is, what is your number one secret to success with short-term rentals?
Wow. The number one secret to success with short-term rentals. And it can only be one thing. It has to be one thing.
If you got two, we'll let it slide. We'll let it slide.
Well, I was gonna say my wife, because my wife just geeks out about the experience. And when people are on vacation, they want the experience. And so 5-star experience, you know, and don't get me wrong, we made lots of mistakes in that area. It's not like she or I am perfect, but I'm gonna say my wife, and shout out Rachel. She's amazing. And then I think what we were talking about, I really believe that nobody wants, it'll take me 30 seconds to explain this, but I think it'll be valuable. I was trying to explain this to the training I was doing this week. Nobody wants money. Like, ultimately, nobody wants, you know, paper with dead presidents on them. Like, ultimately, we are in this short-term rental game for a deeper reason than that. And most of the time, it has something to do, when I've dug deeper, I call it the 4 levels of why, going really deep. If I say, well, why do you want the cash flow? Why do you want the passive? They say something like freedom, or live my purpose, or whatever. And what I try to teach people too is, great, start doing that now. Like, live your deeper purpose now, because it'll fuel you. And then how successful you guys are just becomes a game, right? Like, I'm doing it because it's a game. I'm not doing it because my life depends on it. And I think that's truly, and that's not something I'm perfect in, but in the last year, and Emmanuel, this is why I was vibing with so much stuff you were saying, man, is like, in the last year, I feel like I used to be like, this is the direction I have to go. And now it's just like, no, like, life is coming to me, and it's way more flow. And I feel like I'm living my purpose, so that even if this deal doesn't come through, it's cool. We're playing the game. We're playing the game.
I love that, Sam. And that's such a great way to like end the show. Because again, like, look at it as a game, right? Like, especially like when you're going into it, like, this is like, if you're saying to yourself, this is my year, right? This is when I'm going to make it happen. I have no doubt about that. But like, by you squeezing it, it doesn't make it any faster, right? By you having no leniency with yourself and like learning something new, it doesn't make any difference, right? And again, like, I love analogies, right? So like, and again, since Sam is here with the whole martial arts thing, what have you ever seen about a person that goes into martial arts with like anger or like rushness? You just get whacked by somebody that's a lot calmer and a lot more in flow, and it just doesn't, it just doesn't, there is no rush. Like, it will happen when it happens, and just, you got to be present to that, because again, like, the time passes the same way. And so if you're like this the entire time, it's just, the journey is just not going to be as nice. Really, like, it's literally as easy as that, right? Like, it just, if you hold on, you maybe get there anyways, but it's just like, wow, man, like, it just, you know,
beautiful.
Was it worth it? Thank you, my brother. I'm so grateful you came on. Really, really appreciate it. So proud of you guys. I also love that you and Rachel do it together. Me and Tasha do it together.
Yeah, it's cool.
Mike does it also with his wife. So I don't know if our wives are all just like saints, which they probably are, because I don't think I would want to work with any of us. But at the same time, we're grateful, and hopefully they don't realize and leave us, because my business will be in shambles. But other than that, thank you so much, brother. I look forward to seeing you to one of the events soon, hopefully.
Yeah, man. Love you guys.
Awesome. Appreciate you.